Really important for the health of the knee is the ability to rotate the shin. In this exercise, we're going to try to build a little bit more motion in the rotation of the shin to make sure that we have a balanced range of motion to then train within everything else that we do with load, in running, or any other sort of exercise. We can test out our range without doing the exercise first and just kind of see, hey, can I move my shin by itself? What you'll probably see is either your foot tries to curl or peel towards the inside or outside, or that your hip tries to do the movement instead. What we want to focus on is what's in between those two areas and really get the rotation of the knee joint that is coming from the movement of the shin in this situation. In order to help us block what we're trying to compensate with at the thigh, we're going to use something in between our knees here. I'm going to use a foam roller. We could use a yoga block. You could use a water bottle. You could also use your two fists or anything else that you can find that just keeps you relatively neutral in your hip position. We're not squeezing it. We don't want to feel a lot of inner thigh movement. We're just going to keep it still right here. The next piece of the movement, we can lower that foam roller down if we really want to see our feet, is going to be to lift your toes, but your heel is still going to stay on the floor, and your heel is going to be where we're going to pivot from. The movement is going to look like it comes from the foot, but it really needs to come from the shin. So also giving a bit of attention to what's happening at the front of your shin right here. There's a little spot where your quad or your thigh muscles connect to the front of your shin bone, and it's a little bit bony, hard. There's no real muscles that are on top of it because it's where we bear our weight when we kneel. And if we use this point either by feel or by sight to make sure that we're creating movement, we'll then be able to confirm that we're moving our shin and not just our foot. If our foot's going, but our shin, this spot, isn't moving back and forth, we're not doing the exercise correctly. So we're going to lift our toes. We're going to bring some attention to the front of the shin right here, and we're going to try to spin our shin towards the middle. When we get to our furthest point, we're going to put our whole foot down on the ground. You might feel some pressure around the knee. If you're just starting and this is your first time doing it, it's very common to feel more of the pressure down the lower shin or inner edge of the lower leg here, where the muscles are really trying to do this movement for us. Try to make sure that we're not pushing past where the range comes from the knee joint, and we're really focusing on the purpose of the movement and not just creating as much visual movement as possible. We're creating as much real movement, isolated movement as we can. So again, we're gonna lift the toes, we're gonna pull them into the middle, thinking about this spinning rotation of the shin. We're gonna get the foot totally flat, and especially if you feel a little pressure here, we're gonna let it open for a second or so and repeat. We're not gonna work our way outwards for the average person. They've got quite a bit of external rotation. If you try to do this movement outwards and it's not happening, then you can also practice this movement outwards. But if you already have enough of this, then that's not the point of the movement. The point of the movement is to create what we don't have. So if we're lacking the inward movement, we're gonna focus there. If you've got all of it, if everything's moving in and out, then you can move on to the next exercise progressions about training and activating that area instead of opening it. If we're still working on opening, we're gonna perform a few more of these reps. Oftentimes, I tell people, look, maybe 10 to 20 of them, maybe more, at least once a day. We're trying to sense a change in the knee, an opening in this area, and a relaxing in the foot and the lower muscles so that we can make sure we're creating a quality movement up top. I'll show you on my other side. Mine are about the same. This would be considered pretty neutral range of motion, being able to get 30 to 45 degrees inward without anything else happening. Compensations that we might see is that the whole body wants to shift or turn over to the right, or that our knees do. That's a compensation coming from our shins. We already talked a couple times about the tendency to want to curl and lift the foot in. We're really trying to shift and spin rather than just pull arbitrarily. So make sure you can think about that motion. I usually tell people, put your hands on the front of your knees, really see if you can feel a shift or a change happening beneath your fingertips so that you've got something to feel for and connect with. If you do this for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, depending on how stiff your knees are, and they're moving a bit better, we can then move on to our harder progressions. Additionally, in this video, we're going to go over 2 other forms of opening up some of that space. This tends to be really, really helpful for people who have been told or can see that their knees tend to fall in either when they're standing or when they're doing loaded exercise. It happens for a handful of reasons, and we can work on improving our form and control. But if we don't have the space to open, the space open to control in those other movements, we're also not going to be successful. So this series is all about opening some space in the rotation of the shin. Another way that we can open a little bit of space to get into a bit more rotation is by using a slant board. I've got my slant board here. There's a variation that I do with a towel that gets us a home variation where you don't need to buy any extra equipment to do so. But the point here is that we want to kind of neutralize back out this force that twists, caves, collapses us in towards the middle. So in the first variation, where we're really working on the spinning, in this one, we're really working on a little bit of this side to side drift or shift. If we think about the movement as being an angular collapse of position, we're just going to reverse to neutralize out that angle using the slant board. I'm going to use a dowel here, which could also be a broomstick or just a wall or the top of a cabinet for a little bit of support, because the purpose of this movement isn't to be challenged with our balance. We're going to want to make sure that we unlock the knee slightly and we stand on the middle of the slant board, not the top edge, otherwise we might tip it. And what we're looking for is avoiding our body's tendency to kind of shift and absorb that angle somewhere else, keeping ourselves straight up and down neutral. You might want to give your toes something to balance on from the other leg and just kind of letting ourselves sit here. Normally you'll feel quite a bit of pressure on the inside edge if this dysfunction is something that is apparent for your body. On this side, I feel nothing as I do this movement other than a little bit of quad tension. On my left leg, I feel a ton when I do this movement. We hang out here for 30 seconds to a minute, let that area open up so that we can again move on with other variations to challenge the control of this area. If we wanted to switch out the slant board, they're not super expensive, but if we wanted to switch it out for something that we've just already got at home to get a similar benefit, we're going to take a folded towel. I've got it folded a couple times, maybe an inch or so of height, 2.5 centimeters if you speak metric. We're going to put our pinky toe on the ground, the outside edge of the foot, and the whole inside edge is going to go on top of the towel. We're making a small slant underneath our foot. For this to work, it doesn't need to be a big slant. That's actually the lowest my slant board goes. I probably would have put it a peg lower if it went that low. On the towel, we'll still get the same benefit. And again, we're kind of trying to shift over top of that leg so we really get that neutralization of that angle. And then we're just going to hang out here. This is all done separate from a workout. After we have the space, then we train it. But right now we're creating space.